to another episode of A Better Way of Life. And today, I'm feeling quite tired because I didn't sleep particularly well last night. What about you?
I didn't. I think I went to sleep earlier than normal. I'm not very good at going to sleep. I sound like a child. But then I woke and thought it was morning and it wasn't. And then I can't hear out of my ear. And then I panicked. So I was going to go deaf or something. And I was going to be stuck like that. And I couldn't sleep. And then I overslept by an hour and a quarter. Didn't go for a run, but I did go to the gym. But I feel a bit flustered. I get a bit sort of flustered because of it. Why was yours sleeping?
So a couple of things. One was that I had a lot of pressure work-wise just before the end of the day, which is never a good thing. You should always try and balance it out, but sometimes stuff just happens like that. And then I think that was followed up by the fact that it rained heavily last night, and that always puts me right off whenever you get the rain outside. And then I have to have a little go at my 15-year-old son as well, who left a light on downstairs. Now, I don't know how that woke me up, but it did. It woke me up. It just...
What's leaving it on?
Yeah.
Also, why can't they just... I'm calling my youngest half a job Bob, because he just does half a job all the time. And I'm always going to be nagging mum. So until he stops being half a job Bob, I'm always going to be nagging mum.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that can completely relate to all of this sort of thing. Marianne knows I've had a bit of trouble with the same son recently, because every time I come down in the morning to the kitchen to get the cup of tea and to make the younger kids breakfast, every single cupboard door is open. Every single cupboard door.
What's he doing?
It's just... Why? You open the door, you shut the door. My dad used to say to me, I don't know whether he used to say this to you, but he used to say, close the barn door.
Yeah. Oh, it was like Blackpool illuminations in the house.
Oh, yeah, because you've left
I managed to get a cup with it on for my uncle, because he was just like my dad. But my dad used to go around and put Post-it notes around if we left. I think I should try it. But then my brother used to write sarcastic notes back, so... I don't know. I did wonder just earlier, before we move on, at what age, because I went upstairs and my youngest wasn't feeling very well. So he stepped up to me last night, and I said to him when I went to the gym, can you make sure you make the bed when you get up? Well, he's kind of pulled the duvet back, but I'd probably say that was about it. So I'm kind of wondering at what age you get to where you know what tidy is.
Well, for some people, never. Well, let's ask our guest today. We're going to bring our guest in now. We most of the weeks that we've done this, we've had a guest. This week, we've got another guest as well. We're going to welcome Dean.
Desperate to get on.
Great. And what we can do is we can begin by asking him, does he remember from his childhood any little saying that his mum or dad or someone in the house used to say to him when he didn't do something? So we can ask him that. Dean, how are you?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
So you heard what we were just talking about. Was there anything when you were growing up? Did your parents used to tell you in some kind of funny way, you've forgotten to do this?
Well, I like shutting the doors because I'm a Yorkshireman, and my dad would say, put wood in oil, which means put the wood in the hole. And we shut the door. And and looking at the weather today, my mum would be telling me to put my coat on, otherwise I won't feel the benefit.
Yes, I said that the other day.
That's the one.
But I was interested in what you were saying about, at what age do they do things, and I've worked that out now. I can tell you exactly what age. The day they get their own house. That's when they start doing it.
Or is it when they have you over? When they have you over to their house, I think.
Maybe.
Don't do the things that they want, and then they're like, excuse me.
I don't know about that. You see, because my eldest has moved out, and I've been to his house, and it's a tip. I'm gonna shame him right now publicly. It's a tip. Addison, get it sorted out. right?
Well,
Him and his
I have
partner
3
can't
children.
keep it tidy.
I have
Absolutely
2
disgusting.
children, 2 boys and a girl, and they're all 2 of them left home and went to university 3 years ago, and then one went last year. And I go to their house. They're at their a student accommodation, and surprisingly, their rooms are all nice and tidy and clean. And then they come home for a couple of weeks, and another saying for you, it's like a bomb's gone off.
Yes. Yeah. I just think this is great.
Oh,
Given what we're talking about, given what's above your head.
yeah, that's what I was just about to say, because this is all about behaviour, isn't it? And actually, this is not smart behaviour on, on the behalf of all of these people. That look, just do stuff that helps other people. Tell us a little bit about you and Behaviour Smart.
Yes, I'm Dean. My background, I in the early 90s, I trained as a nursery nurse. It was my claim to fame that apparently I was told that I was the first male qualified nursery nurse. I did my NNEB training in the late 80s, yeah. And I worked in a nursery for like 7 years, and I loved it. It was brilliant. But I just got a bit sick and tired of kids pulling my shirt and calling me miss all the time.
What are you?
Miss.
Miss. And, snot and shoelaces and a whole range of stuff. And I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I found myself working in a school for children with behaviour problems. And very, very quickly at that school, I became quite concerned about the amount of behaviour we were seeing and the level of behaviour. And very, very quickly, the head teacher of the school asked me if I would like to be the behaviour lead in the school. So this was about 1999, 2000, something like that. And I saw it as my job to try and reduce the number of incidents we had. So I did lots of training and I went on lots of courses at that point. And I put together a little, very, very simple Excel incident recording system. And I analysed the data. And that took me quite a long time to analyse the data. It's like a lot of hard work. But what we did with the data is we produced behaviour plans for the young people. And then what happened, I became a team teach tutor at the time. So team teach is a training package that's a whole range of behaviour management strategies up to and including physical intervention when necessary. And I trained our staff in behaviour management. I trained them in team teach and used the data from the analysis that we were creating. And we reduced our incidents by over 95% in 2 years.
Wow.
And then, unfortunately, in 2005, the school was closed down as a part of a restructure of FDMH provision in Sheffield. And I fancied doing something a little bit different. And so I went back to university and studied behaviour. I did a master's degree in teaching and learning. And the focus of the master's was on behaviour. And started doing consultancy work and behaviour management training. And as I was doing the consultancy work, I was looking at how people record incidents and what they do with that data. And this wasn't just in schools, we were in care settings, in a whole range of different services. And I was shocked to see that people were spending hours recording incidents and then just storing them away and not really doing anything with them. And then I cast my mind back to this system I introduced and thought, I wonder if we could make a piece of software that would do that. And I had this idea for years and just didn't really have the money to do it. And I shared it with my wife, who also worked in education, and she was very keen for me to go down the route of having this software made professionally and getting it out there. But I got quotes for people to make the software, and it was ridiculous. It was hundreds of thousands of pounds, and I just couldn't afford it. But I always had it in the back of my mind that that's what I wanted to do, because the system is designed to improve behaviour, improve outcomes, help staff, help children. And I really wanted to do it. And unfortunately, 3 years ago, my wife passed away. She had breast cancer. And she always said to me, you know, you need to do this. And when we knew that she'd not got long left to live, sorry.
It's okay.
No.
Can you?
She said to me, you know, you are going to get insurance money. You should use that to create this system. So I sort of felt obliged to do it. And that's exactly what I did. I used the money from the insurance that we got, the life insurance, and I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I didn't set it up myself. I employed 3 groups of people. I employed a development team, a legal team, and a technical team. And the development team were really the ideas people. The technical team obviously made the software, and the legal team looked at everything that we put in the software to make sure that staff are recording what they need to record that meets legal requirements, and that also could stand up if there's an allegation or something like that. So for the first year or so, we put this in a number of different settings, and we researched the product, and we got our partners. We don't have customers in Behaviour Smart, we have partners. They use the product and said to us, can you make it do this? We would then talk about it. We thought it were a good idea. We sent it to the legal team. If the legal team thought it were a good idea, then the technical team would do it. And that's how we run the company at the moment. And we launched it properly, probably about 18 months ago, and made it available. And the impact's been amazing. We are so proud. In 18 months, we've now got, I think, around about 260 users around the world. But we've got some users in Africa, Cayman Isles, where else? In France. And I've got some meetings coming up shortly where we're looking at Nigeria. And really proud of it. It does what it's supposed to do, and it just gets better and better. It's gone way beyond what I initially envisaged, but still keeps the same key principles that this software is about making people's lives better. Staff, young people, adults with learning disabilities, improving outcomes, and that's what it's about.
Amazing.
I got emotional then.
Well, I said to you,
who didn't? Wow, what a story.
I said to you, I met Dean. Was it at Epsom?
Yeah, at the Care Rose show in Epsom.
Yeah. So I was there with the Care Connector network, and you walk around, and quite often there's the same. I was going to say same old faces, but there's the same people that you see, and the big companies that have got all the money. And Dean and I had a conversation about this, and you know, I sort of rock up and have a chat with him. And for me, it's always great to see a smaller, you know, because you do see a lot of these bigger companies, and there are all the shows and the amount of money that it costs to be at them. And then I started talking to Dean, and of course he told me a story, and it did the same for me, because I know what it's like having a small business. Graham, you know what it's like having a small business, and also obviously my background, because Dean, I shared that with you as well. So for me, it really did, and hearing that story behind why somebody's done it, because so often that just gets lost. And for me, I know the same for me with my business. I want people to know why. I want people to know that I'm fueled with that, and I saw that totally when I started speaking to you. And then, you know, it was only after a while we started looking at the system, and I just thought, wow, having that somebody was actually doing something. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about it for you. It wasn't about the money. You know, obviously you need it to pay the bills, and we've had those conversations, but it wasn't about that. And you've done it, and you've, like you said, the frustration, and like I said to you before, knowing that it was going to cost this much. And I think it's what they don't do, that's not done very well in this country, when people have, the little person has got an idea that's great and it's never going to go anywhere. And I'd say for a beautiful reason, for a sad reason, but how wonderful, what a legacy for your wife, that you were able to make that dream come true, really. And
and what we do with that, Marianne, as well, and just let you know this top secret update that's come in, is that our colours are blue and orange. Behaviour Smart's always blue and orange, apart from October. And in October, we turn it pink. So for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we're always pink in October.
How wonderful, though, that you've done as well what, Graham, you've seen in me, because you asked me a long time ago, well, not that long, if you could do it all again, Marianne, because he knows my struggles, I've told you them. If you could do it all again, would you do it? And I said yes. And that for me is the answer you would give, because
absolutely. I mean, there has been times. There's been times where I was like, why did I do this? I should have just said, no, I'm not doing it, and gone on nice holidays. But no, I'm so proud of it and so glad that I did it. And you know, one day we might even make some money.
Well,
we will. You will.
Yeah, I think it will. And you know, what a great legacy for your wife to be, you know, to be part of all of this. Just listening to the initial story, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the extent of the problem in the first place. Now, I probably didn't understand the extent of the problem until actually my eldest started to work in a school with children with behavioural problems. That's what he does as part of his work. And you know, when people talk about behaviour as well, they perhaps don't know what we mean by those behaviours. My son's come home black and blue from school, right? Because somebody has literally pinned him against a door or whatever. Yeah. What are we talking about when we're talking about behaviour issues, etc., with people? What are we talking about?
I mean, I usually see behaviour in there's 4 different levels of behaviour, really. The way I see it is that you've got sort of what I tend to call primary behaviour, which is what you do when you're happy, you know, and you're going about your day-to-day business and everything's fine. So you sort of baseline behaviour. And then following on from that at the next level up, some people call it anxiety behavior, but I prefer the low level behavior, because for me, anxiety is not really a behavior. It's something that's happening between your body and your brain. As a result of alarm. So I tend to call that low level behavior. So that might just be, you know, tapping or fidgeting or scratching your head or anything, you know, changes in your breathing, changes in your posture. Then we've got defensive behavior, which we call sort of medium level behavior, which is where people are becoming a little bit more aggressive. the brain's shutting down, and they're not really. There's a great book, I don't know if you've read, Thinking Fast and Slow. It's about how when people think fast, they make mistakes. And on that, I usually do a little demonstration with that, and I'll put it out to your listeners at the moment. So we usually say to people, if a bat and a ball costs £1.10, and the bat costs £1 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? And most people say 10p.
Okay.
So the bat and the ball cost £1.10. The bat costs £1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Most people say 10p. And that's because they're using their fast thinking brain, which is very, very unreliable. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are sat there now going, here's 10p. It's actually 5p. And that's because the ball costs 5p, the bat costs £1 more, and that £1 more than 5p is £1.5. So you've got £1.5 plus the 5p for the ball is £1.10.
Oh, yeah.
Even if after I've explained that, there's still a lot of people that go, I don't get it. They usually get it at about 3 o'clock in the morning when they're but the thing is, when we use our fast thinking brain, we make mistakes when we try and think quickly. And when you've got somebody that's being defensive in that sort of medium level behavior, you've got the individual using their fast thinking brain, and often you have a member of staff using their fast thinking brain as well. So mistakes are made. And then once those mistakes are made, sometimes we go to the higher level behavior where if somebody's hurting themselves, somebody else, damaging property or committing an offence, staff have a duty of care, and we have to do something about that. And unfortunately, sometimes that might mean that we have to use restrictive physical interventions, where if it's reasonable, proportionate and necessary and in the best interest of the individual. That's sort of, and the thing is, things like this, they will happen in some services, and we can try our best to keep everybody safe. But just last week I was doing some consultancy work in a special school, and I ended up getting punched in the face. And even with all the skills that that I've been trained in and practiced over the years, sometimes these things still happen. But people tend to focus on the behavior. And my idea is, when you've got somebody that's showing those low level behaviors, if we can intervene then we don't get the higher level behaviors. But when people talk about behavior, if I say to people that I'm training, what sort of behaviors do you see from this individual? Challenging. They usually explain the high level behaviors. So that's what they focus on. And then after we've had the high level behaviors, there's what we call recovery behaviors, where people are coming down. And then right at the end of that, and this is was my main focus of my master's degree, is post-incident learning. How do we learn from that incident to make sure it doesn't happen again? And that involves talking to the individual, or using communication aids or their communication style, but also talking to staff and about what they did. And one of the problems, because people are just focusing on behavior, they look at a lot of people tend to look at sort of quick fix ways of dealing with it. So they say things like, well, that student doesn't like people that wear orange t-shirts, so nobody's allowed to wear an orange t-shirt, which doesn't help the situation.
I've had it before with glasses. Someone says, oh, they don't like people with glasses. And I'm like, well, that you can't always have a shift.
Exactly.
Nobody with glasses on.
Yeah. And so it is interesting, and I do sometimes we see a whole range of different behaviors, but we only tend to focus on those high level ones.
Are there sort of commercial reasons why people focus on other areas, etc.?
I think pressure and time. You know, staff working in care and education services, they have a tough job. You know, it's not an easy walk in the park for a lot
I
of
do
these.
think a lot of this comes down to, ironically, education of staff.
Yeah.
Because we had this conversation. I think the other thing you haven't said about what your what is it called? System? What is it called?
Yeah, system or software. Yeah, systems.
What it also does, which is what a lot of, well, there isn't anything out. I've not seen anything out there, and I think everybody needs to think about this. Being somebody that's worked in those settings, in all sorts of settings. In fact, a child lost a tooth when they bit into my jeans once, into my leg. But so all sorts of settings, is that what yours does that other things often don't, is that it actually, you sort of alluded to it, it trains the staff as well. So it's using that data to learn from it, which actually acts as a form of educating people. So it's not just putting a box, putting that over there. It's actually then, because you can go for training, because that's something else I want to talk about with that. You can go for the training, but it's the training and the what happened, and now what we're going to do about it. What can we learn from that? And that's what.
Yeah, because one of the problems with recording an incident is often, this isn't the case always, you know, I know people write some good incident reports, but all too often I see incident reports where it's not quite the truth. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. Recently, I saw a member of staff in a service setting getting visibly angry with an individual. And the individual grabbed hold of this member of staff there and dragged them to the floor. And I saw this happen because I was doing some consultancy work in the service. And I didn't really say anything. It was all supported. There were other staff around to make sure that that incident ended. And then later on that day, I saw the incident report. And the member of staff didn't write, I was standing in his intimate space shouting. What she actually wrote was, I was trying to support him. And he grabbed hold of my hair and dragged me to the floor. And that's not what happened. So what I created with Behaviour Smart was a system that allows you to, you know, admit, or if you like, or say that you'd made a mistake or done something wrong, because mistakes aren't bad. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. And the first thing we need to do when we're going to learn from a mistake is admit that we made the mistake. I don't know if you've read Matthew Said's book, Black Box Thinking, but it's talking about learning from mistakes and how the healthcare services around the world aren't moving on as fast as they should do, because people don't say I made a mistake. They say there was a complication or something like that. So what this Behaviour Smart does is get people to record their incidents in such a way that it almost, to a certain extent, it forces staff into reflecting on the incident. And it does that on purpose. And it's, you know, one of the users described it to me as continuous CPD, that every time they fill an incident report in, they're learning something from that.
Should be,
yeah, absolutely. Rather than just saying, you know, he grabbed hold of my hair and dragged me to the floor when I was trying to support him.
But it's quite. Sorry, go on, Graham.
No, I was just going to say, does that have a kind of a rub at institutional level, though, where the institution goes, well, yeah, but actually the main, however you might want to think that we're doing incident reports for the benefit of everybody and everybody learning or whatever. We're actually doing incident reports because we don't want the reputation of this institution and our staff, etc., to be put into question.
Yeah, I mean, in the research year that we did on Behaviour Smart, we asked people before they even knew what Behaviour Smart was. We just asked people, why do you record incidents? And 98% of those people said in case of an allegation. And I said, well, why don't we record incidents so that we can improve behaviour and outcomes for everybody? Surely that's going to be the better way forward. And what I've found is the services that want to do that, the services that do really want to improve, they absolutely love Behaviour Smart. The service, we give people a free trial of Behaviour Smart for a month. And some people come back to us and say, thanks, but no thanks. We're still going to carry on using paper. Or I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a big piece of software out there in education that's designed for safeguarding, recording safeguarding incidents. And all you have to do, you just write whatever you want. And you can create some forms and get it to ask questions, but it's really quick to fill in. And people come back to us and say, oh, no, thanks, we're using this.
But we're back to quick fixes, aren't we?
Yeah. And it's what you want to do. What do you want to do in your service? Do you genuinely want to improve outcomes for everybody? Or do you just want to write something down quick so that there's in case of an allegation, you can pull it out? And actually, you know, part of my other work is that I do, I've not done so much recently, but I do expert witness work. And we look at incident reports, and when incident reports have been written quickly with no thought, or there's no structure to them. In fact, in 2002, there was some guidance came out, the guidance for restrictive physical interventions, that said staff services must use a structured recording form when writing incident reports. But some of the software that's out there doesn't, it's slightly structured.
Not fit for purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And it won't really come to light that in those services until there is an allegation. So it's frustrating when people come back and say, oh, we're just going to carry on writing it down on paper.
Do you find that that's, I mean, I see this quite a lot, depending on, I'm going to say the size of the organisation, but I don't think it's just the size, it's what's underpinning, or maybe who the owners are, or what I can't think of the words, the motive maybe is of if you've got the bigger companies maybe that don't. I mean, I was speaking to somebody yesterday about, and the job they do is they do a physical intervention and they do training. So I met them on a course and I said, oh, how are you doing? And he said, oh, okay, I'm a bit bored with what I'm doing because it's the same old same, and nobody changes anything, or we can't change the way we do things. And I felt really sad about that you've got somebody genuinely who's a really great guy, who's got a really lovely nature, that would be great to be training other people. But he said it just, nothing changes because we're so big, nothing changes.
I don't know whether that's just sort of organization level more than sort of national level. You know,
but it's what the values are at the top, though. That's the thing, though, isn't it? It depends what the values are. And I see, I mean, even now, I don't do a huge amount, but training, people will ask me if you can do challenge and behaviour training. And I say, no, I won't do challenge and behaviour training. I'll do what I would call distress reaction. Absolutely. And actually, as soon as you start reframing it, because a lot of the time what I find, I mean, psychology is my background, and that comes into pretty much all the training I do, that as soon as I feel like a lot of people, whether it's teachers and whether it's care staff, nursery staff, whoever it is, I feel like they're given a disservice, really, because they're on the wrong footing to begin with. Because I only have to then go in and even just mention Maslow, you know, and say to people, you know, for me, I said to you, Dean, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I've reframed the way that I react to people by looking at them and saying it's not about they're not doing this to me, it's about them, and there's something that's going on, there's a need for them that's not being met. And as soon as you say that, the difference I've had from people, then they've come back to me and said, wow, whether it's somebody they're looking after, and I've just said, just step back, or whether it's people looking after their own children, just step back a second and ask what's going on. So, you know, I did some work in the prison recently, and I was training prison officers to train. And what I did with them, hopefully will help them when they're doing their work and passing that on. And that was massively missing in their training as prison officers. I said, this isn't about you. I said, think about all that they've got that's gone on for them, that's led them to be where they are. And so when you got in their face because you were annoyed because they said this to you, and I said, all you're doing is it's going up and up and up, and it's never going to end well. And you've got the power. You've got that power over them, which is wrong.
It's so interesting you say that, because yesterday, I'll try and give you a quick version of this story, because this is so bizarre what happened to me. That just before Christmas, I was laid in bed 12:10, and I was just answering my few final emails, 12:10, and and I looked up and he's calling me at this time. But before I could answer the phone, because I thought it might be something to do with one of the children or whatever, the phone went off. So I just put it back down. I thought I'll call it tomorrow. And then I got a text message from the same number that said, can I speak to Dean Cotton, please? So I thought, yeah, I'm going to phone this number. So I called it back. It was 12:10 in the morning. And this guy picked the phone up and he said, is that Dean Cotton? I said, yeah. He said, I'm so sorry. I thought I were calling an office and I was going to leave an answer phone message so you'd pick it up when you got in the office. He said, I didn't realise you picked the phone up. I said, who is it? He said, it's Kieran. And he told me his surname as well. And I went, oh my God, this was a kid I used to teach when he was 11 years old in SEMH provision. And now he's 34. Wow. And I said, how are you? And then he started to tell me about his life, and he's not had a great time. And he's been in and out of different services, including prison. And I said to him, right, I said, do you know what? I said, I've got so much to talk to you about, and it sounds like you've got so much to talk to me about. He lived in Liverpool. I said, I'm in Liverpool on Wednesday. I'm going to take you out for dinner. And he said, no, I'm going to take you out for dinner.
Oh.
And this kid had been in and out of a whole range of different services, but he'd gone to prison when he was about 14 for accessory to murder. And I'll not go into too much detail, but he ended up going into Strangeways as a Cat A prisoner. And in Strangeways, he was given the opportunity. They gave him a little maths test to do, and he smashed it. And they said, oh, we want to see you. So he went to the learning department, and they said, how would you fancy doing an open university course? And he said, yeah, I'd like that. I'd like to do a law degree. So in Strangeways, he did a law degree.
Wow.
The system had let him down over a number of different things. He tried to talk about abuse that were happening and nobody would believe him. So once he got his law degree, he sued the social services in the area where he was. He sued the police and he sued the council, and he won he came out with £50,000 that helped him pay his student loan off, and got some of his convictions quashed. And he told me all this stuff. And then as we sat there listening to him, I said, why did you phone me? And he said, because I've never stopped thinking about you. And he said, and out of everybody that's worked with me, you were the only person that ever listened to me. I was a bit taken back by that, because I don't think I did. But he was saying, and this is linking back to what you were saying, Marianne, that when a lot of staff in a lot of the services have been that he's been in, they bullied him, and they were aggressive towards him. They tried to order him about, and I said to him, so even in the school, he even said, the school where you were, there was some staff there that when they were holding me, they were hurting me, and I could see they were angry. He said, and that made me more angry and made me more aggressive. He said, but when you were holding me, I said, well, I thought you were pretty easy to hold. And he went, yeah, because I didn't resist that much when you were holding me, because I liked you and we had a good relationship.
You saw him.
It's not just about respect either. He said it's about perceived respect. He said that some staff would say they respected me, but they didn't. And the only difference, really, I said to him, what's the difference? What made us different? Is it about training? And he said, no, it's not about training. He said that is part of it, but it's about recruitment and getting the right staff in the right place with the right values, and senior leaderships having the right values. And it was quite interesting because he told me about something that he'd done recently where somebody had stolen a bike, and he was saying that one of his friends went round to this guy's house to get this bike back and ended up beating him up. And he said, but he had every right to beat him up, didn't he? He said he stole his bike. He said, you'd have done that, wouldn't you? And I said, no, I wouldn't. I said, I might have wanted to. I said, but the only difference, Kieran, between you and I is that I was brought up in a loving, caring family.
Yeah.
It's not about challenging behaviour. I hate that term.
It's interesting. I used to do appropriate adult work. Well, not work, And I remember going down to the police station this once because I work with children in children's homes and care settings. And one of the police officers said to me, Christ, I couldn't do what you do. And I said, well, I could do what you do because I've got respect for them. I said, because I know I'm very fortunate. I was brought up in a home where I was taught please and thank you. And I was given hugs and love and that kind of thing. And I said, these people have learned to shoplift. They've learned to do all those things. So are they wrong, really? In your eyes and my eyes, it's not the way to behave because it's against the law. But they're just doing what, and I think if you're able to see that person and able to, when I see you all have seen it, when you see, you just think, gosh, we're talking completely different languages. One of the lads you were saying, one of the lads I worked with, I remember I used to go out with him and we'd walk up the road and he'd keep spitting. And I'd say to him, look, Sam, I'd stop walking. And he'd say, what are you doing? I said, I'm not walking with you if you're going to spit. So we'd carry on walking. And then he'd say, you're going to keep doing this, aren't you? I said, I'm not walking with you if you're going to spit. Put it like that. I said, because I will go back with you. And he wanted to get his mum a birthday card. And then we were in the car. He kept stopping the CD player. And so then we carried on. And we'd go on like this all the time. And then when he was leaving, because he was going back to his mum's, I said to him, I bet you're really glad to get away from me. And he went, no. He said, I love you to bits. And I said, come on. I said, I'm always going on at you. And he said, but it showed you cared.
And that's the key, isn't it? Like, if you care, it's got to be when I worked at the SEMH school and we interviewed staff, that's what we really wanted to know. We didn't want to know that we didn't care what they knew.
Yeah.
We just wanted to know that they cared. That is the main thing. And like you're saying about, behavior, we focus on that behavior, but we've got to understand that experiences that people have had, real or perceived, shape how they feel, and those experiences and those feelings drive how they behave. And I always think, if I'd have had the same experience as Kieran, for example, I'd be behaving in exactly the same way.
Because you've learned those positive things.
but this stuff is, listening to all this, but this stuff is really hard. I think it's really hard within organizations and institutions, because I think we've had for so long, we've had a particular way of doing things. And I'd be interested to know whether, actually within the sector that you're predominantly dealing with, do we need to see some legislative change happen there as well, to enable a system like yours to kind of replace a system that isn't working really? And we know that within business in general, it's a big topic at the moment, change culture, or culture change, whichever way you want to look at it. And it is difficult because we've micromanaged for years. We've had a hierarchical system of management for years, etc. We're letting go. What we're seeing really is that all of this stuff that we used to do, it just doesn't work, right? And we're letting go of age-old systems in order to become better humans.
I don't know this. Schools. I don't know though, because schools, I don't know. Sorry, Graham, interrupting there, but school. I mean, now you're tending to see this. It's not when what's the phrase they use? Zero tolerance or something like that, or just disruption-free learning. And my concern with it is that what's happening now is children or young people are losing the right to. It's not managing behavior at all. It's a blanket approach. It's not managing behavior in the slightest. When you've got a situation with my son in his school that he's at, where I think it's two, I want to say really it's 2 warnings and then you're in isolation. Well, that actually leaves you no opportunity to have a voice, because my eldest he's now at the point he does have respect for the teachers, but kind of doesn't, because he said he turned around to get a drinks bottle out one day. A teacher came in the room, and he's a very good lad, and said, "Give this boy a warning." And I said, "Did you say something back?" He said, "I couldn't, because if I'd have said something back, that's not dealing with." And I've spoken to the school, and obviously there's a teacher trainer that doesn't go down very well when I ring up. But and I say, "Well, why are you doing this? You're giving detentions to kids. Are you actually getting them to reflect on what happens when they didn't do their homework? Are you getting them to do their homework in the session? No, we're getting them to do lines." And I went, "What? This was in 2020. What's going on?"
Sorry, I have to jump in there really quickly, because I did a piece of research on detentions in schools, and basically what we did, and I'll come back to the legislation changes in a moment, but what we did, we went into a school, and it was only a very small scale study. So, but what we did is Behaviour Smart. There's a post-incident learning section, and the post-incident learning section of Behaviour Smart, it asks what happened from the individual's perspective. How did that make them feel, and what can they do next time they feel that way? There's just addressing the experience of feeling, the behaviour, and getting the individual to reflect. So this school had contacted me, a secondary school, and they said, "Look, we have a big issue with detentions. We're getting the same kids in detentions time and time again. So they're clearly not working." So what we did is we put in place the final page of Behaviour Smart, the post-incident learning page. What happened from the student's perspective? How did it make the student feel? What can the student do different the next time they feel that way? And we put that in place instead of detentions. So we got the whole school to ban detentions for 3 months.
Good.
And put these 3 questions in place instead. And we put them on an app. So the student, rather than, they do something in class and the teacher would say, "Look, what you've just done there would normally warrant a detention, but I just want you to fill that app in." And it'd take 2 minutes to fill the app in, and then the student would be sent away. In 3 months, that reduced incidents by 64.5%.
Wow. See?
However, following the research, the school went back to giving detentions again.
Right.
You've got kids.
Yeah.
I know the kids that go to detention and they want to go to detention because it means they don't have to go home and they get to spend more time with their children. So as you said, it's not about, you know, I had many a row with the school, not because of my child. I'm not putting my child down for that school because I know he'll be in isolation because he will like to have the final word on something, which means being heard. That's not actually a bad thing in my world or in anybody's world. But yeah, it's just not looking at why. It's not looking at the why, as you said. Why is
it strikes me when I hear conversations like that, and research and evidence like that actually this needs to be escalated to sort of parliamentary level, and it has to go to the top, really, because it's this is beyond this is beyond individual institutional change. This is culture change right from the top. This is Department of Education change to say, actually, this doesn't work as it stands at the moment. We need someone from the top to say, actually, we are going to doing this differently.
Unfortunately, at the moment, that's going the other way. You know, there was an article in Times Z last year saying that schools should be giving out more detentions. By people
who makes those decisions, people that have no idea.
But also, you know, there's another thing as well that's worth mentioning around sort of controlling people, because detentions, you know, they're a punishment. There's no, you know, some schools do use detentions quite well, but they still have a negative impact on the behaviour because it's there.
Change the future behaviour. Doesn't change the future behaviour.
Absolutely. But you know what happens is sometimes if we've got a school where a lot of schools call them sort of rewards and consequences. I tend to call them, you know, bribes and punishments. If schools use those well a lot, then what you get is or sometimes you might get improved behaviour, but people are scared to do stuff. That's not a loving, nurturing, caring environment where I'm not going to do that or say that because I'm scared. And what I found with services like that is that you get people like Ofsted that love them. But what they don't look at is what happens when these people leave school. Because if I'm being controlled all my life, and I'm doing this to get this, or I'm doing that because I'm scared of that, well, great. I mean, obviously, if I say to a group of individuals, you know, you behave well this today and I'll give you 10 quid, they'll behave well, but not tomorrow.
Do you know what? Yeah. I don't think we're gonna run out of time there's no way we're gonna solve this today.
Everybody needs to read this stuff, though.
Yeah, well,
and it is.
I think what I was going to say is there's an opportunity here to start a massive conversation. That's the thing. I mean, that's why we brought you on. That's in a way, that's why we do all of this. Marianne will know I'm all about conversations. I think we have to have these important conversations. And will we ever get to a truth? I always say, no, we never get to a truth. But what we do by having conversations and opening up the dialogue is we get nearer to a truth. So I'd like to invite you people listening to this to open up the dialogue. You know, you've heard a lot today. We've heard a fantastic testimonial, really, from Dean. And, you know, what an amazing thing that he's done here with creating this solution. He's learning. He's got data that is challenging us and challenging everyone to think about how we're doing things at the moment. I'd love to hear from anybody out there that's involved in behaviour with people, education systems, whatever. You know, anybody that's involved as a politician, anyone that's involved in the House of Lords, if you're listening. let us know. Get involved in the conversation. Open up. Where are the channels that we can take this conversation further so that we can actually get closer to a truth? Because we need to, because it's what's being done at the moment doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work universally. And we know that, because actually if we're marrying, even if we marry what we know is going on in the business world at the moment, we know that the businesses that are going to thrive in the future are the ones that are embracing real cultural change and are really not only putting a set of values up on a wall and painting them in black, but they actually live those values. Right? That is hard stuff. None of this is easy, but we have to start somewhere. And Dean, you've started, so we're going to help you escalate this and hopefully finish. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for telling your story. We didn't really get time to go into the legal piece, but that's part of the conversation as well. Let's hope that people will pick up on that. I'd love to hear from any specialist solicitors, barristers, anyone in the legal profession as well that's involved in sort of educational change or whatever. Put your voice to this as well. Why are we doing stuff that actually restricts? Properly looking at what could actually change people's behavior, as opposed to I understand we've got to protect people that are working with. I understand, but do we want to become just do we want to become just a litigious society where actually the only way that we can live is to do things in a particular way so that we don't get sued? Or do we want to actually change behavior so that we don't have the risks there in the first place? That's the challenge that's here. And it's a big challenge. It's a massive challenge. So that was
just before we go, I know on your poll, because I saw you smile, where Dean would have voted.
So for everyone that hasn't seen the poll, what was the poll?
Do you read your email? Do you read emails, read and respond to emails in the evening? And I was saying about how people get shamed for doing it, but you will find, again, that particularly when you're self-employed, that's probably the only time you get to do it. So actually, it was really good that Dean did. So there we go. That's a positive reason. Why, when you get emails from people, that when you ask somebody if you want to, because you just never know who might be sending that message or ringing.
And that may be a program for another time, but really what I was saying there is that ultimately so easy to challenge everybody else's behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Based upon our understanding of how we perceive the world, etc. But there's a real link between what both of you do. You get people to challenge what they're doing and rethink about what they're doing and the effectiveness of what they are doing. Right? That can never be a bad thing. Every single time I see a process out there where effectively someone's ticking a box in order to say that's done now, it doesn't work. It never, ever works. When someone has to reevaluate why they've done something, what they're doing in the first place, can we make this better? Then they get better at doing it. And, this stuff actually isn't rocket science.
And that's the thing as well, if we look at something like Behaviour Smart and we put that in place and people see the results, then maybe that would affect government policy. When people can see.
I think as well, though. I think, Dean, aren't you neurodiverse?
Yes, I am autistic.
And Graham and me. I think there's a bit of a theme here. I think we're called disruptors, but I think the world needs many more disruptors.
A lot of people say I'm autistic. I just say I'm hyper-focused.
Yeah.
Listen, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. If you haven't connected to Dean yet, please do connect to Dean. Do